Welcome to everyone to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle that this week is taking up the topic of wisdom keepers. Uh, a couple weeks ago, when Bob Buzz spoke, we were taking up the topic of the Bodhisattva path because that was the week of Buddha Purnima when we celebrate the birth, the enlightenment, and the death anniversary of the Buddha. A few weeks before that, we celebrated the cycle of the phoenix, which actually was related from that beneficent and self-sacrificial perspective to the celebration of Christian Easter. And this week, when we are taking up the topic of wisdom keepers, we are honoring the life of Helena Blavatsky, whose death anniversary is on May 8th, who was truly, truly a wisdom keeper and who spent her life as a woman traveling solo, going to many of the places where wisdom was kept, especially esoteric wisdom. So she was going into very obscure places that were extremely difficult to get to so that she could learn what this ancient wisdom was, and then find out how all the different sources of wisdom that she could find were actually reaching to an even deeper source. And that kind of wisdom keeping that she did, and comparing traditions from the East, the West, different indigenous traditions, is really a magnificent example of how someone can take our history of the past, our deep learning from the past, and carry it into the future. For as you remember, this is the year of citizens of the future. One of the people that I consider to be a citizen of the future is Miku Lenentine. And she has been a beloved member of Still and Moving Center for a number of years now. She has presented here at GEMS on a number of occasions. Her background is so varied that I think I'm going to let her refer to the different traditions that she is a part of and has studied herself, because I'm not sure which one she's going to emphasize. She's working for UH Manoa now and doing some important work having to do with sustainable communities. So Miku, we turn it over to you now.
It's really wonderful to be here again. It's been a little while. And when Renee and I were speaking about the topics for today, we were, chatting about different ones. And I was like, oh, as soon as I heard the wisdom keepers, I was like, yeah, that's the right fit for me. So I'd love to share, just briefly my background. I think I've met many of you, but maybe not all of you yet. So I'm actually, I've been in the Still and Moving Center community for, many years now, right? Can I say that? Or that's kind of fun. And then I'm also teaching right now and running a resilience research center at Kapiolani Community College. And, but before all of that, I had I would call it a detour, but I don't know if there really are detours in life. We might not understand it till the end. But after my PhD, I kind of began embarking on a journey working with different wisdom keepers. That's the word that I'll use. And that's actually still my favorite word for how to describe them. And what was strange, it was almost like a snowball effect. So I had never worked with what I call traditional elders, or people who are trained in the lineal path, living teachers. And depending on your tradition, maybe you call them living masters, or kumu or kahuna, or traditional elders or wisdom keepers. I hadn't really worked with too many other than the word hayoke means a trickster. I would call him a trickster counselor that I did apprentice with for many years. His name is Dr. Eric Carroll DeSalle. Like he would not let me call him an elder. So he definitely counts. He was probably my first one. But in terms of finding others, it wasn't until my PhD when I kind of embarked on a road of self-reflection following my dissertation. Took a little bit of pause from life. But then somehow, I don't know how, I just ended up working with all of these different amazing people and had the opportunity to interview. I was trying to figure it out. At least 15 different wisdom keepers from traditions all over the world. And so what I thought I would do today is share, I like to share more directly from the source of other people. And the traditions that I'm presenting today are wisdom keepers of the world. So traditions around the world, more from what some people would call an indigenous practice, or you might call like a place-based or Aina-based tradition. Though Peyush and I, some of you know Peyush Kumar, I've had many conversations about this, and he's pretty adamant about things coming from India being indigenous. So there's a long standing conversation also about kind of what that means, indigeneity, and how it relates to wisdom keepers. But I'm mostly presenting from what we call Turtle Island. So that's our mainland, Hawaii, and then others as well. So I thought I would share, I've got music to share. I've got some video things to share. I have playlists to share for you. So I wanted to just kind of jump in with a journey across traditions from different wisdom keepers I've worked with. And then we'll move into our circle share to discuss. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share, and I'll be introducing kind of different groups and some resources too. So I'm going to screen share this first introduction to wisdom keepers from a group called Wisdom Keepers for the World that I've been following for a long time, and I happen to have met them at it's called a permaculture convergence. I just happened to have met some of the teachers there, and I was just in love with some of them, and I just been following their work. And so that's the first one I'll introduce. Oh, that's me. I didn't do my little bio. Like Renee said, I probably have too many different things to even go into. I'll just put it in the chat if anyone's curious. That way we can save some time. But yes, I've had the great pleasure to work with a number of different wisdom keepers. So I just want to play this because I think this really, really sets the stage for what we're talking about here today.
Indigenous people for answers.
We have one Earth, and I do have concerns about what we are doing to it.
Nuestros corazones se han cerrado y nuestras mentes no han entendido.
This is the time of the feminine. This is the time of the woman.
We've been waiting for. And what we know is that the key to this mystery is simply to drop into your heart.
I will meet you there. And we're going to heal the earth. We're going to heal our people. We're going to heal ourselves and everything around us.
Remember who you are. Live your traditional wisdom. We need you. The earth needs you. Now.
So that I wanted to share that because I feel like that really kind of the stage. And also it was so neat that it happened to be in Kauai that they gathered. And I just kind of want to offer, as we're kind of having this conversation, the tremendous amount of wisdom that's present right here on Oahu, in Hawaii, coming from Native Hawaiian culture and tradition. And we're so blessed and lucky to be able to be immersed in a culture where we have so many teachers around us who are accessible. Some of these other teachers are way far away in the jungle, right? Or they've only left a few times. I've had a chance to meet a couple different teachers that it was their first time ever leaving the mountains, that kind of thing. So when I'm speaking about these teachers and wisdom keepers, I do mean, especially, at least in my experience, connecting with ones that are living now, or like I said, ones that are lineal holders, or maybe have had like awakening experiences, things like that, and are passing that on. And when I was kind of reviewing the Rolodex of different teachers that I've been connecting with, I was thinking about, like, so that was recorded before the pandemic. And some of the other recordings and things I've had were before the pandemic. And there's a really important frequency that existed before the pandemic that I feel like we need to find it again. And sometimes going back to these recordings and going back to these teachers, some of whom we've lost since the pandemic, is really important to help us remember and regain that frequency of sharing, exchanging, being, learning, communicating. The wisdom that they offer, it does have to do with awakening, right? Transformation on so many levels. And some of the teachers I've worked with are what you call shaman, right? Or more medicine keepers. Others are sharing more energetic transference. Others are sharing like actual herbal medicine through ceremony, ritual, things like that. So much of it is about awakening, transformation, and healing. But I think really recently, a lot of the teaching is about the resilience piece. And I was thinking a lot about this, that at least more Eastern teachers focus on like the past life piece, right? And the bigger past lives is a big theme. Whereas on Turtle Island mainland teachers, it seems to be a little bit more about my blood relations, my actual ancestral relations. And how do we get along in the world? The ego does exist, where we do care about this body and are trying to feed ourselves and each other. And recover from struggle and things like that. And so I think that this, many of the teachers I work with are working on, of course, multiple levels, but especially right now, revisiting the wisdom of the past and reconnecting with those that are still here is really important for resilience. And of course, that's what I'm researching and working on right now. So it's like very, very present in my brain. But I did want to share a few other things with you. So I'm just going to screen share one more time. So some things that I've had the opportunity to do was working with grandmother Karina Sarinan, and she is from the Sami tradition. This is the reindeer people of Finland. And so she, for a long time, I worked with her to put together this newsletter. And as part of the newsletter, we put out every new moon a message from the elders. And so I just wanted to share a couple, just a tiny snippets of elders I've worked with, but also as a way to highlight the amazing diversity of wisdom keepers that are out there and the different kinds of teachings and practices. I'm going to also share this into the chat. So if you want to be able to access their stories later and read about them a little bit more in depth, then you can do that. So this was a previously published article. So this was this first one, she titled it "Listen and Become Ready." So this is grandmother Jane Inman. And she had the opportunity to work with a wisdom keeper called Painted Arrow, kind of in Arizona, New Mexico region. And her main message that she wanted to share was about too much technology and not enough trees. Too much technology and not enough trees. And actually everyone is thirsting for nature. And I think that if you read through these stories, you're going to see over and over again the connection to nature as being really important for these wisdom keepers in tradition. Curandera era Zavala Lopez. That was an amazing interview because it was in her indigenous language, translated to Spanish, translated to English. I think there was 4 of us that were doing the interview to make that one possible. But her similar but different message is about understanding the light and the darkness and using the jungle as a metaphor, that we can find that light there as long as we can focus on that frequency of hope. So that's kind of that's sort of her message. So she speaks to this, the fearness, the sickness, the adversity, but doing regular ritual and cleansing is really important to her work. And then similar with Sheri Piari Ashenin Camino, again, that was another one translated from indigenous to Spanish to English to make this interview possible. He works with tobacco as a healing plant. And so tobacco and dream work. And really an interesting thing is a lot of these healers and wisdom keepers have moved their work to online. So he does remote healings. I've never experienced this, but this is a new thing that's possible. You have to cleanse. Basically that's a huge part of his message, is you have to cleanse. You have to continually find ways to cleanse yourself and stay in connection to nature. Dr. Carol was really amazing. So she's an artist, and this is an incredible experience because the interview with her, she's now passed over. She had cancer during the time of the interview with her, but she met light beings in essentially Mongolian mountains. And there's a whole tradition of these light beings helping people and guiding them. And so they opened up access to different Akashic records and taught her many things. And the grandmother that I apprenticed with worked with her. So this interview is an opening. Many of these interviews are not like journalistic interviews. They're kind of a sharing of frequency, even in the written form. And this one definitely is, because she's an artist and she also includes all of her art. So I don't even really know how to describe that one. That one is just to explore and immerse in another frequency, I would say. And it has its own work. I didn't do the interview with Bakbaya, but this one is important because he's working in the social justice field and doing a lot of diversity work with youth. And so his story is incredible and important from that piece. So that's a really wonderful one to look at, and how he transforms the youth that he works with. There's Mama Shabeta, Sky Otter. This is Hampiwami Leticia. She's from Peru. You can see again the theme of nature over and over and over. I interviewed Fariba for the Rumi tradition, and many of you, I think, have had a chance to see her speak. This is a really amazing interview because it gets a little bit personal. So you get to hear a little bit more about her world and what it meant. I think she and I have talked to her about her being a younger wisdom keeper, and what does that mean? How do you step into that space? Auntie Hazel, I've worked with very closely. And her, like the main quote from that interview is listen and become ready. Listen and become ready. Again, so much completely interwoven with nature. This is my Hayoke, Dr. Eric Harold DeSalle, that I apprenticed with for 7 years, who helped me begin to the practice of meditation and teaching practice of meditation. And he's completely dedicated his life to making the world a perfect place for children. And he's coming from this weaving of different traditions where he's bringing in psychology. And then there's Grandmother Sarah, and of course, Grandmother Karina, the 6 sacred laws. So I just wanted to share all of these things with you because they represent just this diversity of different kinds of wisdom keepers from around the world and different traditions. And then there are so many who've crossed over. So we actually created a digital ofrenda to put the names of beloved ones that we've worked with on the altar. And that's another practice, of course, is this altar making and keeping from many, many different lineages. And then we honor them with prayer, we honor them with dance, we honor them, right, with food, we honor them with tradition. There are so many ways we honor them by doing these newsletters and being in the space of sitting at the feet of these elders, sitting at the feet and listening. And all elders, right, have wisdom, but these keepers are carrying a different kind of tradition. They have this energetic transmission in the work that they do. Grandmother Karina wants us to honor them also with a grizzly bear. So there's other, honor them with nature. This is Grandmother Karina doing, it's called despacho, a bundle of prayers buried in the earth. And then these are all of the elders that had crossed over when we did the issue. The most interesting thing is about this connection with life and death. So many different elders that had crossed over. So those are just some things I wanted to share, and I hope that you have a chance to look at them. I'm going to post the Wisdom Keepers of the World into the chat as well. So especially Ilarion Claren right here from Alaska. His teachings are just profound. And to speak about honoring wisdom keepers, Ken talked about how to honor them, but trying to speak about their wisdom is so much beyond words. It's hard to express. So at least I've kind of given you little samples and tidbits. Another group to be aware of is this Grandmother's Wisdom. This is the Council of Indigenous Grandmothers for the World. So this group's amazing. It's grandmothers from around the world, and it was I think it was a Hopi tradition about people coming together from across race, across creed, across culture, and coming together for the light. And so this group is something that a group to follow, a group to keep up with. And some of my elders have worked as part of this collective, and they've made beautiful books and artwork to share. But again, it's all traditions across time. So that's another one I want to share. And then this is a really beautiful playlist. It's on Spotify. I tried to find it for you guys. It's called The Time of the Sixth Sun. The guitarist is Estes Tonis, who's amazing. But I can't really find recordings of The Time of the Sixth Sun. It was an interview series, again, of wisdom keepers and elders from around the world. But since the original creation of it, I think it's past, but you can actually listen to this entire journey. And it's guitars in the background, and then a traditional elder is narrating it. And it is just completely phenomenal. So like if you have a long car ride or airplane ride, I listen to it over and over again. And again, it's the frequency of this recording. So yeah, those are some things I just wanted to share. And then, let's see. Okay, and I think to close, before we move into our share, I wanted to the activity. Oh, did I put Manu on here? Oh, sorry, I have to name Auntie Manu Meyer. And just in case, for some reason, if you haven't encountered her already, Aloha is Her Intelligence is probably one of the best recordings. This is from when she was much younger. I don't know, she right now she's still, so interesting. What does it mean to be a wisdom keeper? And do you identify with, is it kind of, not that it's common, but Auntie Manu is still lifting up Auntie Lynette, who teaches Ho'oponopono through UH West Oahu. And but Auntie Manu herself is a phenomenal wisdom keeper. So I'm just sharing her information to the chat, just in case for some reason you haven't encountered her before. And then in many of the things that I'm doing right now, I'm also trying to kind of honor Olelo No'eau from here in Hawaii. Just in this one, of course, is the honoring that there are many different schools, all teaching to the same source. So just wanted to throw that into the chat for you. But this was our little activity. This is a song that was written by one of my teachers from the Mexica Aztec tradition, who's a dance chief for a woman's dance. It's based out of Mexico, but she's dancing in California. And I thought what I could do is put the song on for about 2 minutes or so and invite you to take a moment to think about all the wisdom keepers in your life. So whether it's a living wisdom keeper or someone that you connected with. And just take a moment to, in your mind, in your heart, name the name, and offer some thanks. And so I'm put on for 2 full minutes. So that's like a good amount of time. But just to sit with it and to sit with the awe and the gratitude for these beautiful teachers. So that's our little 2-minute activity here.
A mi planiteño tilio tlacuitlalpan tlalipan que ni quixuixino yolotzin. Oh, yeah.
Ikakeneyaski amitlaniteño titlio tlalcuitlalpan tlalipan kinikixuixino yolotzin hacemo palishiwala nemilicueponis tlalipan tinescayo totiu xochime tinescayo totiu cuicame. Del pasado que dejaré cuando me vaya. ¿Es acaso que en vano venimos a vivir sobre la tierra? Dejemos al menos flores, dejemos al menos cantos. ¿No es acaso que a eso venimos a vivir sobre la tierra? Of the past that I will leave when I go. Did we come in vain to live upon this earth? Let's leave at least some flowers, let's leave at least some songs. Isn't that why we came to live upon the earth? Planiteño titlio tlalcuitlalpan tlalipan kinikixuixino yolotzin hacemo palishiwala nemilicueponis tlalipan tinescayo totiu xochime tinescayo totiu cuicame.
Okay, so I just wanted to end with a quote from grandmother Karina and then open it up for everybody to share. So this is the end of one of the interviews I did with her. And so she says, imagine this global village receiving all of our prayers and the ripple of the core of intention to 6.5 billion two-legged beings. She says, I forgive you and your family, your ancestors, forgetting that we are all in oneness. I ask that you forgive me, my family, and my ancestors for forgetting. I love you and your family and your ancestors. I open to receive the love of your heart, your family heart, and your ancestral heart now. May we now return to the waters of the seas. May we now return to the seeding of these freshwater pearls into our gardens. May we now stand tall with one another as the trees in our forests. May we steward our legacies with truth, love, justice, and light, for all of our relations are sacred. Om Teot, for all of our relations.
Many sparkles. Thank you so much. I want to particularly thank Miku for joining us from Vietnam to give this presentation. My goodness, I don't know how you had the self-collection to be able to pull that together. That's wonderful. I'm kind of wondering, how do we know whether we are approaching a wisdom teacher? And how much does it matter whether they are or they are not? And I am remembering a story from, I believe it's the Hindu tradition. I think Carolyn probably knows this story as well. And I believe the name is the mud image. And it's a young man who hears a wise teacher delivering a lecture to his disciples, and he goes to the master and asks to be his disciple, and the master turns him down and says he's just not ready. And then he and his disciples leave that village and leave this young man behind. Well, the young man is just not to be stopped and in offering his devotion to this teacher. And so he creates a little statue out of mud, and he sets it up on a special altar, and he does all the rituals to honor this teacher through this mud image for years and years and years. And what he, the little bit that he had been able to glean from him evidently must have opened for him a great reservoir of wisdom. And people began to cluster around him to learn what he had to share. And much later in his life, a very old man, very scruffy, I can't even remember whether he had any disciples with him or not at that point, comes to listen to the person who had spent his whole life devoted to this mud image of his teacher. And of course, the man who came to listen to him was the the one whose image he had made in mud. And he fell down at the feet of the younger man in admiration for his wisdom, which had so far, he believed, exceeded his own. So whether or not we actually are following a person of wisdom, maybe in some ways is less important than our own efforts and our intentions, what our motives are, and how devoted we are in that study. And still, I ask, what are some of the marks of a true wisdom teacher? And that's everybody, of course.
Renee, that's a really good question, an important question, because, well, Grandmother Karina actually I did a whole interview with her on this, in part because she's training us to become wisdom keepers. She calls us baby grandmothers in training, and that the world needs people to step into that much earlier than we used to. So that, like, in some traditions, people say at 52 years old, if you're on a path, you've been training, that there's a transformation that starts to happen. Grandmother Karina says that's starting to happen now. People in their 40s are having to step into this role. People in their 30s are having to step into this role. And in some communities where there aren't any, people in their 20s are having to step into this role. But that's wisdom keeping as a role, as a title for a actual, like, a role in your village, how you're interacting and supporting everyone around you, which is different in a way than someone who's holding wisdom or keeping wisdom. That all of us carry wisdom, right? Children have so much wisdom, right? Like, there's the trees, so there's like wisdom keeping as those that are carrying wisdom and becoming a hollow channel for God to speak through them, whether it's on purpose or not, or spontaneous, things happen that way too. But the role of the wisdom keeper in your village as the one that's, like, consciously tending it and being there for others, and that means they have, the way I was trained, like, specifically, is you have to be able to take care of yourself fully, which means you know your capacity, you know your weaknesses, you know that you won't be able to take care of yourself. So then you make plans for that time that you can't take care of yourself. That's like level one. One of my teachers called that becoming an adult. And in adolescence is when you're still learning how to care for yourself. You're not yet caring for others. So adult is when you can care for yourself and care for others, and you have enough backups in place. And then the next level after that, coming into that elder space, is then you have enough resources to care for the family, for the village, for the community, the region, the world, and then multiple dimensions. Then you're doing work on so that there's all these little levels that continue to build out from that initial role, and that you can be called on. And that's another. So I think those are at least some distinctions. And I wanted to add one more thing, which is I've worked with a lot of different wisdom keepers. I've, like, camped with them, cleaned up their tents, like, done all of these things, like traveling Sami wisdom keepers, right? They're more shaman, they travel. They're people too. And that's the really interesting thing about being a wisdom keeper, is they're still on their path of continuing, evolving, and journeying. And if they're having the hat on, right, that they're in that role, they're presenting a different space than the people they all have wisdom keepers too. They all have mentors usually one level higher than them, or that they're still communing with spirit to be guided also. So that has been really important, is they still make mistakes, right? They'll still come into they still have their little very human things, right? So often we do want to make statues of mud, but actually they still actually have their own things they're working on. They usually don't share it with the students because that's not for the students to carry. But that's the interesting. So, okay, I'll stop there. But that's some of my answer, at least I have. I'd love to hear other people for sure.
That's a great answer, by the way. Good start. I bet other people have things to add. Or their own. What makes a wisdom keeper? Or do you have an example of a wisdom keeper that you'd like to bring up that maybe exemplifies one or more of the qualities that you think represent a wisdom keeper?
Can I jump in here, Miss Miku? It's so good. It's Carol Ann. It's so good to see you here. Let me see if I can flip. There we go. I think that, as you had mentioned, the years part of being a part of Still and Moving Center, I kind of laughed in my head because it's going on the years factor for me too. And it doesn't seem as if it's been that long, but you were very instrumental in being part of my compassion practice for almost 2 years. I think we did Kuan Yin on Tuesday nights, and being able to kind of dive into your wisdom as a way for me to get grounded and healed and take care of myself just kind of was a springboard to a lot of really other great things that came in my life as a result of leaning into your wisdoms that you hold, dear to yourself and as part of your routine that keeps you healthy and well. So for me, when I think wisdom, I'm grateful to the couple years that we had together doing our compassion meditation group. So much gratitude and very happy to see you back.
Thanks, Carol Ann. So good to see you.
So wisdom keepers, from Carol Ann's perspective, one of the things that they do is they help us learn how to take care of ourselves. Great.
Thank you very much for your both your explanations and your illustrations. It was very instructive and very inspiring. I would share what they incorporate, because from my experience, a wisdom teacher, you identify by their practice, by their conduct. Maybe it's just the way they, they maybe sing or chant, but maybe it's just the way they reach down and touch a child. We tend to assume that we're going to learn wisdom by listening to words, and we can. But I think in the end, it's the observation of practice that makes a very big difference. So I just wanted to share that perspective.
I think that's so true. And one of the things that I've learned is a good question. I think this is why my main teacher, who I apprenticed with for so long, didn't want to be called a wisdom keeper, is if you, a wisdom keeper in one of my trainings is someone that is able to receive correction. If that makes sense. If they hear that they've done something that's been harmful or out of alignment or anything like that, they have enough self-reflection to receive it. That's one thing I've observed, is that really looking at their behavior, not just in the outer world, but also in their own inner world. If something, how do they receive it if someone's to give them feedback? And I think that's why my main teacher didn't want to call himself he didn't receive it that well, we'll put it that way. But I've worked with others that was amazing, that they would realize oh my God, and then they would pray and reflect and journal and really deep dive and be curious and apply all that feedback to themselves when it comes to the small ego, let's say that way, right? The small ego things. That's another tell. And the other thing I was going to say, Carolyn, that you reminded me of, is they seem to know each other. They seem to know each other. They just do. Even if they haven't said anything, there's somehow, Grandma Karina said, people they just invited her into the circle. They just knew somehow. So that was another one.
Well, they might find themselves gathered together in a Zoom session on a Saturday afternoon. I'm thinking, perhaps. I know we've heard from virtually everyone in this circle today, and everyone has had a lot of wisdom to share from their life's accumulation. So I mirror the gratitude to you, Renée, for sort of taking charge in the new domain of keeping wisdom alive and flowing.
Thank you. We have certainly heard so many wise words here over the 3 years. I think that we've been doing this, just a little over 3 years, I think. And it's been a amazing collection, and not just a collection. I feel as if we build upon what we have been hearing and what we have been conversing upon. And so it's a growing awareness, and you use the word awakening, Miku, at the very beginning. And maybe we have our antenna up in more directions and going deeper than we did before. And this idea of wisdom keepers recognizing one another, they probably, I would think, also build upon one another's wisdom, because when we are able to do deep listening, the experiences that someone else has gone through and the wisdom that they have gathered therefrom can become part of our experience and wisdom. And it's almost as if we're sort of living multiple lives, so to speak, during our one life, because we are able to really gain so much from one another when we do that kind of deep listening. Yes, I'm very grateful to this group as well.
I was just thinking of when Makalapua, the Buddha held up a flower, and Makalapua was enlightened with just the flower. And I think I really I think there are wisdom keepers, but for me, it's like, Miku, it's like what you had said before, and we've kind of alluded to, it's like the wisdom of the tree or the wisdom of the rock, or especially children. We did daycare for 25 years, and I got more wisdom from them in their beginner's heart mind and their way of wanting to learn and be aware than, sometimes they hold it in their heart. And how I feel about wisdom, someone's wisdom, it's almost like if it touches my heart and soul. I mean, it's like I can't think about it. It's like I feel it. And I think the gift of beginner's heart mind is that we can learn from a rock, and that if we really open our heart to oneness of all that is, we can really be present and receive. And yet there's such a gift to be in a master's presence. They do have a certain wisdom that it's not the words, it's just who they are. And there's a gift that's given with that. And so I really appreciate this talk, because I think it's really available to all of us, and that we are all wisdom keepers. And as each one shares, it touches my heart, and I really feel the presence and awareness and mindfulness of everyone in this group, and just seeing that extended out to many people. So thank you so much for your talk.
Had a couple of neurons fire a moment ago about someone recently said that the next Buddha may be the Sangha. It is the collection of minds. Was that the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh?
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Thich Nhat Hanh, yeah. And somehow that resonates with me about this idea of wisdom, that it is now more of a flux. It's more synergy that's producing. Recently ran across this family systems theory in psychology, and it's really based upon the fusion between the field of mechanics and psychology. And out of that fusion comes this whole new level of wisdom. So I'm not sure if that's related at all, but it could be that the internet is the wisdom generator, maybe more than the keeper.
Oh, really just what everyone has shared, that the wisdom tradition is that sense of whatever inspires us in our wisdom, and that's people. But I went to a lecture with Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she gave some wonderful illustrations and talks and things. But during the question and answer, what impressed me was she would immediately go to where the questioner was coming from. And sometimes it wasn't all that articulate, but she'd get there, find that place, and then sort of explore that place forward. And it just became incredibly interesting. And she kept doing that over and over again. And there's a Nicaraguan poet that once said, we have always wanted something beyond what we've wanted. And that kind of deeper hunger for listening for something. And there was a Indian poet, Linda Hogan, who referred to how the turtle from the sea has a feeling of listening to the land, to come onto the land to lay the eggs. And then the eggs hatch and the little turtles have a hunger for the sea, which they've never seen, they've never heard, they know nothing about it, and yet they're going to the sea and kind of going back and forth to the earth and the sea and the sky, whatever calls us to those things beyond what we want. We don't even know we want them yet. We don't even know what they are. So what everyone has been speaking really resonated with me a great deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's another total hero of mine, Bob. Thanks for naming that. I put her book into the chat. Again, I'm sure you guys have encountered this, but if not, Braiding Sweetgrass is probably one of the best books in the world. I really mean that, really, for so many reasons. And I've been part of a weaving of indigenous wisdom. Well, actually, we're seeing indigenous knowledge systems and Western knowledge systems for STEM in order to address climate change. And that's something I've been part of with the university. And we got to interview different practitioners who are using indigenous research methodology. And Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass book was the #1 most recommended book of all the different practitioners that I've worked with, Hawaii and mainland. So that's just another interesting tidbit.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add or share?
Just mentioned the artist Jeremy Roski, who I met through Renee at her home sometime in the last year. And he has a song called The Seed. And it's all about that. How does the seed know what it's going to turn into? Yeah. And it's a beautiful piece. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, Miku.
It's so great to see you, David.
Likewise.
So Kevin, would you share with us what's coming up next week? And while he's doing that, we'll ask someone to give a thank you to Miku. And if you would think who would like to do that. And Kevin, would you tell us what's going on next week?
Of course. So next week, we're really thrilled to welcome Krista Heiser. Krista is a NIA practitioner with Still and Moving, but she is going to give a really nice presentation on the theme of Children of Mother Earth from the tradition of Jainism. So that's going to be next week. And just to give you a future look into some of the upcoming topics, May 20th, our theme is Energy Custodians. And then the 27th, to wrap up March, we'll have Killen Reese, who will present on Creators of Beloved Community on the Pacific String Museum from the Hawaiian musical tradition.
I am so grateful for all these different traditions that we in Gems of Wisdom get to share with and discuss and learn about, and many of which I've not heard about. And I'm really excited about all that we've been doing. It's really a gift. And I think we are all wisdom keepers here because we're interested in learning and opening our hearts and really hearing it. So would someone like to say a thank you to Miku?
I'll dive right in. Miku, thank you for the beautiful presentation and the love and the efforts that you put into providing us with a vast amount of your own wisdom and just the love and purity of your beautiful heart. And I think that the idea of you being in training as a wisdom keeper, I think you were that long before I ever met you. So thank you so much for providing your wisdom and love with us today.
Thank you, David. And I have to say one last fun thing. Today is my 40th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
I'm so happy to be here with you for this. It's such a perfect thing.
Well, you know.
Well, thank you for sharing your birthday with us. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And Kevin and Renee said that they would put all these links in an email because we couldn't copy it. So we'll get all these links so that we can do it. So you look clock. So thank you so much, Miku. You just gave us so much wonderful information. You are a wisdom keeper and a sharer already, and that shows in your spirit and your light. So thank you. And if anyone would like to stay on, we can stay on a few more minutes. Is that okay with you, Miku?
Sure. Yeah.
Otherwise, those that need to leave, it's okay. And we'll see you next week. Blessings to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So good to
Miku,
see
okay,
you.
life begins at 40.
Yes.
I'm not sure what they mean by that. I'm hoping 70 is the new 40.